Hi guys, Niall here. Welcome back to the 8020 BIM channel. Today we're going to talk about a more efficient way of using generic annotations within the Revit environment so that you can leverage the power of schedules to quickly and efficiently update standard text notes across a whole project. So in the example we have in front of us, this is a previous building that we put together for a quick phasing dialogue video. And generally, if you're looking at something that's kind of pre-tender, you may not have all of the various components modeled to a high level of definition. You'd probably be modeling a kind of generic wall types, LOD 100 as kind of placeholders until you have a better idea of the final material selection of the building. So what you would typically do in this instance is you'd go into your plan view, and this is an existing plan view here, and you'd press TX for your text, and you drag your arrow and you'd input 215mm blockwork wall. Now, the problem with this method of using generic annotations is you have to go view by view and update the text information. So this 215 blockwork wall annotation applies in this view here, in this view here, in this view here, and in this view here. So if this was present across all 5 views and we actually discovered that the existing construction was a cavity construction, for example, we would not be able to change that note across the board with ease. We'd actually have to go into every instance on the views and change that note. So the idea is that we want to actually circumvent this. We want to actually streamline this. So we're going to create a generic annotation family that makes general text notes more Revit-y essentially, and gives us a schedule that we can update the fields within and therefore update multiple drawings at the same time. So I'm going to go through how we can do that. So the first part is that we have to create a generic annotation family in order to do this. So I'm going to get rid of that text note, not to confuse things. And we're going to go up to the big Revit button on the top corner. Under new, we're going to select family, and then you'll be brought to your template location. If you're not brought to this, you're going to have to navigate to it. It's probably going to be in your app data. And then in your template file, you should have annotations. So you double click into annotations and you want to scroll down till you find the metric generic annotator. You open that and you're greeted with this. Now this gives you a little note about the function of how this family works. So essentially this intersection is the insertion point of your annotation family once you've created it. So we're going to delete that. And the first thing we were going to want to do is we actually want to set up 4 parameters for this generic annotation family. So we're going to go into, under the modify tab here, we're going to go into our family types. And under family types, we're going to add parameters. So our first parameter that we're going to add is a number parameter. All right. So we're going to call this number. Under discipline, we're going to leave that as common. Under type of property, we're just going to select number, and we're going to press text there. And we're going to have this report by instance. We're going to press OK. Then the next parameter we have to add is the text note. So the actual note that we're going to input onto the drawing. So we're going to say add. We're going to call this text note. Discipline common. Under type of parameter, we're going to select text. Group parameter under text, and yet again it's a by instance. Then we are going to add a view type. So if you imagine that we have multiple plan views, that we have a text note that's consistent throughout, we may have multiple elevations, we may have multiple sections, and we want to actually differentiate within the project between them, so that we don't necessarily have a plan note updating an elevation note if they're not related to one another. So that's an important step. So we're actually going to set up our view type, and the type of parameter here is going to be text. This is going to be a manual field that we're going to fill in within Revit in the project, and this is a by instance as well. And finally, we're going to create a visibility. Okay. Parameter, and this is going to control the note visibility. So when we look at the parameters we're introducing, we're going to create both a number and a text note that are represented in the project. And the idea is that we can use the number almost like a keynote, that we can just have the number reference and we can have a schedule down the side of the sheet, or we can have the number reference and the text note side by side in a more typical presentation of annotation. So it gives us that flexibility. So we're going to call this our note visibility here. And under our type of parameter, so we're going to leave it as common. We're going to select as a yes/no parameter. And we are going to group it under visibility. And this is also a by instance. We're going to press OK. So these are the 4 parameters that we need to introduce into the generic family. So we're going to press apply and we're going to press OK. The next thing we want to do is actually introduce our labels. So under create, we're going to go into label. And under label, we're going to create 2 variables. So at the moment, we only have a 3 mil variable. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this and I'm going to say 2.5 mil number. Apologies about the typing. I'm going to just set this to a different color so it's easily distinguished on the project. So I'm going to set that to blue. I'm going to set the weight to 3. And I am going to show a border. I'm also going to set the text size to 2.5 and I'm going to set it to Arial Narrow as that's our current Office standard. Everything else is okay. And then I'm also going to duplicate this again. So I'm going to edit type. I'm going to duplicate this and I'm going to say 1.8 text note. Text note. I'm going to set this back to black. I'm going to just give it a 1. And I'm going to turn off the border. It's still Arial Narrow, and I'm just going to change the value to match our the name of the text note. So I'm going to press OK. So once we have our 2 label types created, I'm going to select the 2.5 number. I'm going to align it to the right, and you're going to understand in a moment why I'm going to align it to the right. And we're going to input it close to the insertion point. So I'm just going to input it there. And here we're actually going to give it, it's going to open this edit label dialog, and we're going to assign the number parameter to it. Press apply. Okay. And as we can see, we have our little number parameter there. Next, we're going to go down. We're going to select our 1.8 mil text. And while that dialog is still open, we're actually going to align it to the left. And we're just going to select the center point. We're going to go through our list here, and we know that we need the text note as this parameter. So we're going to add the parameter to the label, and we're going to press OK. Then finally, under the text note, we're going to go down to this visible dialog here, and this is a checkbox, and we're going to apply the note visibility parameter to our little checkbox yes/no dialog. So I'm going to press OK. And then I'm going to go up to File, Save As, Family, and we're going to save it as our generic annotation family. And press Save. We're then going to load it into our project. So as you can see, it loads in with our generic annotation family already attached to the cursor. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into our existing view here. We're going to double click into it, and I'm going to go into the annotate dialog, and we're going to select symbol. And then we're going to navigate down to the symbol that we require. Okay. We're then going to place our symbol as such. So you can see that the insertion point was actually in and around here. So there's a few things we need to do. First thing we want to do is we want to add our leader. And we're going to edit the type so that our leader arrowhead is whatever variant we want. You could have a fill dot as such, or I prefer personally a 20-degree arrow for this. So we're going to press apply and OK. And as you can see, we have a number, we have a text note, and we have a view type. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go into our number. We're going to assign it number 1 as the integer. And under the text note, we're going to say existing 215 mil blockwork wall as such. And you can see we have our basically our almost representative of a tag. It's like a keynote with our number present. And then we have our text note after it. And we can control the visibility of the text note in the plan view if we wish by just using the selection box there. Okay. So I'm very quickly going to create a few more notes so we can expand upon this idea. So I'm going to copy this, press multiple down to our double doors here, then across to our internal double doors, and then up, to our internal partition wall. And I'm going to relabel all these. So this is going to become 2, and this is going to be our external double doors. I'm going to put existing in front of that actually. I'm going to select 3 for our number here, and we're going to say, internal double doors. Then we're going to select 4, and we're going to say existing internal partition wall. Okay. So as you can see, we have 4 text notes that have been generated with our new generic annotation family. That's brilliant. So we're just going to copy this existing blockwork note over here as well, so you can see that we've got 2 versions of it in this view. Okay. So this is all well and good, but we haven't actually seen how this improves our efficiency yet, because the input of this is very similar to putting our text note, where you put in your arrowhead and you put your type, and that's it. Where the power really comes in is the fact that we can actually schedule these items into a master schedule. We can then filter them by view so that we can say, okay, well, only notes belong to existing plans, or our demolition plans, or our proposed plans are changed, and then we can type them out within our schedule and change, let's say, just the existing plan notes in isolation. So if you imagine that you have 5 floors of existing plans and you've got 5 independent GAs for that, but a lot of the text notes are consistent, you can update all 5 of them in one shot via schedule, rather than going sheet by sheet, view by view, and inputting and revising the text notes that you already have present. So the way we schedule this is very simple. We can basically either go into our view, schedules, note block, or we can go into our schedules down here and right click and say new note block. So here it gives you the options of what you should pick, and we want to pick generic annotation family, which is the one we created, and the note block name, we're going to call this efficient plan notes, just for example. Then it's going to give us the properties that we want within our schedule. So we want our number, our text note, and that's it for the moment. We're not going to put in any other for the moment. We're going to come back and create a master schedule at the end, and you can see where our view type parameter comes into the fray. So in our filter, we don't want to set up any filters yet. Sorting by grouping, we want to sort by number, ascending, and then we want to sort by text note, ascending. We're going to leave itemize instance on momentarily, just so I can see why we actually need to, just so I can show you why we actually need to turn this off afterwards. Under formatting, we can leave the 2 as they're shown at the moment, and in our appearance, we're going to change these just down to 2.5 Arial to make them a little bit more presentable. And we're going to leave our grid lines and title and headers. Okay. We're going to press OK, and that's going to generate our efficient plan note schedule. So if we go back to our base plan here, you can see that we have our 4 different notes and our duplicate of our note type 1. So if I press WT here, I'm just going to cancel out a generic annotation family there. I'm going to press WT to tile the windows. And I'm going to go to our existing 215 blockwork wall. So as you can see here, we can actually see 2 number 1s in this schedule. And the problem is, if I change that, let's say we discover that that is actually a 250mm blockwork wall, and I press enter, you will see that I've updated only one instance of that. So number 1 here has updated with 250 mil, but number 1 down here, which we actually want to be the same note type, is still on the 215. So it's critically important that when you're creating the schedule, you go into your sorting and grouping and you ensure that itemize every instance is turned off. And that means duplicates of the number 1 will overlap into the 1 field. And now we can change that text to 250 and press enter, and you can see that both instances have updated with the 250. So I'm going to undo that because that's a 215 block. So this is brilliant. We have a first pass of our schedule here, and we have one view specific with our text notes on it. But the real power becomes when these text notes apply across multiple views and we can edit them all within the schedule in one fell swoop. So what we're going to do is we're going to give an example of that. So I'm going to come back into our plan view here. I'm going to right click and select all instances visible in view of our generic annotations. And I'm going to Control C to copy them to clipboard. Then I'm going to go to each one of these views. I'm going to say modify, paste, align to same place. We might have to do some neatening as we're going. Shouldn't be a problem. Paste, align to same place. Yet again, we'll go through some neatening just to make it a little bit more legible. Apologies about this, a little bit slow. Okay. So as you can see now, we actually have 5 drawings all with the same annotations assigned to them. And they're all scheduled within this little schedule dialog here. So we can change our external partition wall to have 100 mil thick. And you can see that every instance that we've copied between the views is now updated. Okay. So I'm just going to undo that note. And obviously our existing plan notes are not necessarily going to be the same notes as our demolition works plan. And similarly, they're also not going to be the same as our proposed works plan. So what we're going to do in each of these instances is we're going to go back to our existing view. We're going to select one of the notes, right click, select all instances visible in view, and we're going to assign the view type to existing plan notes. Okay. Because this is our existing plan as we're looking at it, we're going to assign the view type as existing plan notes. We're going to do this for our demo plans and our proposed plans as well. So we're going to right click, select all instances visible in view, and we're going to call this our demo plan notes. Select all instances visible in view, proposed plan notes. And the great thing about it is these are all fields. So once you've actually set up your first pass of them, you can select all instances in your next view, and you can literally just click down and say, well, this is the demolition plan we're on, so we can use the demolition plan notes here. Select all instances visible in view, and our, apologies, proposed plan notes. Now, what we want to do now is we want to take this initial base schedule, and we're going to turn this into our master schedule that we can update all of our new generic annotation notes project-wide in one schedule space. So the first thing we're going to do is I want to duplicate this out, and I want to duplicate this out for every variant of the plan types that we've created within our generic annotation families. All right, so I'm going to go into my schedules and quantities here, and under efficient plan notes, we're going to duplicate this not once but twice. Duplicate view, and we're going to relabel this one by pressing F2, and we're going to call it proposed plan notes. And then we're going to go to our second one, relabel it. We're going to call it our demo plan notes. And our first one we're going to relabel up here. We're just going to call it existing plan notes. So we have 3 variables now for our different view types that we've assigned our text notes to. So what we actually need to do now is we actually need to filter each one of these to only show the correct plan type notes. So we're going to go into our filter dialog. We're going to select filter by, and you'll see that we don't have the parameter assigned to the schedule yet. So we have to go back to our fields and we have to select view type and add it to our fields. Then we want to go in to our filter dialog, filter by view type equals, and because we're in our demo plan notes, we want to assign it to demo plan notes. In our sorting and grouping, we want to ensure that it remains as it was. In our formatting, we want to go down to our view type and make sure that it's a hidden field. We don't necessarily want a text box to start showing now saying that all of these are in our demo plan notes parameter. So we can press OK. And this is now only showing the notes associated to the demo plans. We're going to do the same now for our existing plan notes. So we're going to go into our fields. We're going to add our view types. Under filter, we're going to filter by view type, and we're going to say existing. This sorting grouping dialog remains the same, and our formatting, we're going to go to view type, and we're going to turn on hidden field for view type. And finally, we're going to go to our proposed plans and do the same. So yet again, fields, we're going to add our view type parameter. We're going to go into filter. We're going to create a filter by view type equals proposed plan notes. Sorting grouping dialog remains the same, ensuring that itemize every instance is turned off. Under formatting, we're going to go to view type and select hidden field and press OK. And now we've got 3 independent schedules correctly associated to the type of view that their generic annotation notes have been assigned to. So what we're going to quickly do is we're going to sheet these up so you can quickly see the difference once we create the master schedule and start changing them on how the notes change. So beside our existing plan, we're going to place our existing plan notes. Beside our demo plan, the same. And then just beside our final proposed plan, I'm going to put this here. Okay. Now, so what we've done is we've created a keynoting and text block, essentially. Not using keynotes now. I don't mean to confuse with keynotes. Keynotes are a different function, but it's very similar to keynotes in the sense that you can literally just have the number and the referral to the schedule, and that's it. You do not need to have the visibility of these text notes on the plan if it keeps things neater. On particularly large detail plans or on very large GAs where you may need to do a lot of annotation, it probably makes sense to have these numbered 1 through to 60 and save the space in the sheets and just keep it nice and clean. Now, what we want to do now is we actually want to create a master schedule that the user within the Revit space can quickly manipulate to update the text notes on every one of the plans independently. So what we're going to go is we're going to go into our existing plan note schedule here, and we're going to duplicate it. And then we're going to call this master annotation schedule. What we're then going to do is we're going to filter it. Give me a moment now. I'm trying to work this out in my head. We are going to go to sorting and grouping. That's okay. Yes. So we're going to go into our sorting and grouping, and we're going to say none for both of these. And then on our top one, we're going to assign by view type, and we're going to select header and footer. And then we're going to assign number, and then we're going to assign the text note. On our formatting, that all remains the same, and our appearance remains the same. Okay, we can press OK. Now, under our filter dialog, we never actually removed the criteria for the filter, so we're actually going to say none on our filter. And that will mean that instead of seeing existing plan notes only, which is what we had in our filter from the existing that we duplicated the view from, what we're going to do is see all the present. So as you can see now, we have our demo plan notes, our existing plan notes, and our proposed plan notes all in the one space that we can actually manipulate the output. Because we're not putting these in the sheet as well, we can expand this window so that we can easily infill. We don't have to start scrolling left and right, so we can just expand that as far across as we want. So I'm very quickly going to go back to our sheet here, and I'm going to press WT to tile the view. I'm going to close that existing view behind. I'm going to WT again. And what we're going to do is we're going to start editing some of these notes in this dialog. So you can see that both the annotation text on the drawing sheet itself within the view and the schedules are going to update with the new information that is assigned per plan type. Okay, so in our existing plans, we're going to say existing blockwork wall, and we're going to say to be retained in all these instances in our existing plan. So we're going to press Control C. In our demolition plan, we are going to say existing 215 blockwork wall, and then we're going to say highlighted areas to be broken out, removed off site, and made good, for example. On our existing double doors here, we're going to say to be masked and sealed prior to demolition works. And finally, on our existing 215 blockwork wall, we're going to say new 12.5mm skim and paint finish to be added. And our existing double doors, new powder coated finish to be applied. So this is fantastic. We have our master annotation schedule here that's been updated, and you can see our to be retained notes have been applied to our existing plan note schedule and our existing plan notes. We have to be retained on every instance there. Okay. On our demolition plan, our demo plan notes, you can see highlighted areas to be broken out, and then you can go to your 215 blockwork wall and it says highlighted areas to be broken out. So these are now acting independently from one another. This is a very, very powerful tool in the early stages of project development where you're using maybe LOD 100 generic items as placeholders until the material assignments of the project are decided, until you have a better idea of budgetary constraints and that kind of thing. So at that point, when you're approaching maybe tender stage, you would want to be swapping out your generic placeholder items, your LOD 100 items, for something like LOD 300 items, which then you'd be applying the typical tags and scheduling to the actual model family geometry itself. But in this way, you can very quickly update a very large number of drawings or drawing views when decisions are coming into the fray in the early stage of the project without having to go view by view, sheet by sheet. Now, you can imagine something like this where you have an L-shaped building like this. You might want to overclad this, and you could create a materials list schedule for your elevations. But you have 5 independent elevations just to cover this one L shape. But you'll also have 5 existing and 5 enabling works elevations. So in this instance, you can create your one schedule, and under your master annotation schedule, you can update the notes for the material changes on the elevations, and all 5 of your proposed and your demolition or your enabling works and your existing elevations will all update by you simply just changing the one field in your schedules. So that is a very, very Revit-y way, I suppose, of controlling your generic annotation and text notes within Revit. It has a very low barrier to entry. You don't need to be a family whiz or a parameter creation wizard. You don't really need to know a lot about family generation in terms of model geometry, doors and windows and that kind of thing, to be able to effectively schedule your whole project and really control the full spectrum of annotation across the project with ease. So thanks a million for checking out this video. If you have any comments or questions on this, please make sure to pop them in the fields below the video. Like and subscribe if you wish, and we'll be back with similar content to this in the future. And our next step for this is to maybe take a project towards the tender stage and start removing this kind of generic annotation and populating the model with real geometric data, for, so let's say, manufacturer's information for doors, smoke seals, automatic closers, that kind of stuff. So we'll be going into a more kind of realistic scheduling for tender and beyond in our future videos, so make sure to stay tuned to that. So thanks a million for checking out the 8020 BIM channel. My name is Niall, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye bye.